About 10 months ago, I made a video called 300 Beats Later. And in that video, I listed all of the lessons that I had learned from making over 300 beats in less than a year. Nothing in that video was wrong, but looking back, I think I missed the true lesson after 300 beats, and that lesson was burnout. So I'll be the first to say it. I burned out 100%. I totally burned out. Today, I want to talk about why I burned out, what it felt like in the moment, and how I'm going to prevent burnout in the future. Let's talk about how. How did I burn out? There was a few things that kind of caused me to burn out. The first thing was that I was obsessed with outputs. I was so focused on making as many beats as I possibly could. It turned out I made a ton of beats. I averaged like 1.7 beats a day or something ridiculous like that. But it clearly was one of the reasons why I burned out. I had realized that I was kind of attaching my identity to output. And one of the major signs that I kind of can see now looking back retroactively is that I was constantly checking my views. I would post a beat and I would refresh the YouTube studio and just every 15, 20 minutes, trying to see how many views it got, trying to see how many likes, how many comments. And I guess unconsciously what I was doing was I was kind of attaching my identity to the output itself. I was kind of saying, if the beat was good, then I felt good. If the beat performed, then I'm okay to feel good about myself, which that's like one of the major signs of burnout. If you're doing that right now, just be careful. You might be kind of inching your way towards burnout. Another reason I kind of burned out was I was trying to be something that I wasn't. I was kind of forcing my outputs to look a certain way. And what I mean by that is making a beat in a genre or a type beat that I didn't necessarily want to make, but I thought, well, if I can make this beat, it's going to sell or it's going to blow up or whatever I thought. Also, my YouTube videos had a similar vibe where I was like, if I could just provide as much value as I possibly can, then it's a successful video. Even if I didn't necessarily 100% believe or use even what I was saying, I thought that if I could just jam-pack value into the video, then I'm good. It's a good video. What really ended up happening is I kind of was propping up this identity that wasn't even really me, but it was what I thought that I should be, if that makes any sense. Another major reason that I burnt out is I was using creation to escape rather than build. What I mean by that is if I was in a bad mood or if I was tired or just feeling something that I didn't necessarily want to feel, I would kind of use FL Studio as a way to mask those emotions. I would say, okay, well, I feel bad, but clearly I can still crank output. So I'm good, right? Everything's fine. Even if I don't necessarily feel great, since my identity was attached to my output, as long as I was cranking out beats, I was okay with myself. And so that kind of led to a little bit of mismatch between what I was truly feeling versus what I thought about myself. That combination it's like a house of cards. It's bound to collapse eventually. And I did collapse. I guess we'll move into the next section, what burnout felt like to me in the moment. So burnout has an interesting kind of feeling. It wasn't this I'm tired or I don't want to do this kind of feeling. It was more of like, okay, something is wrong with me. I used to think, why can't I do this anymore? It was kind of scary because I loved FL Studio. I loved making music. And it started to turn into this dark and heavy feeling thing. I didn't want to lose it. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. And so I was just very confused internally as to how something I love so much can cause so much, negative emotion. It led to thoughts of like, well, maybe music isn't for me. Maybe I'm just not cut out for it. It got to a point to where I would open FL Studio and I would have this kind of lingering anxiety that I couldn't quite put my finger on. But I started to just develop this negative relationship with it. Man, that was just very, very confusing because in my mind, I loved it. I really did. And so these emotions led to 9 months of no beats created, no beats uploaded, no YouTube videos, nothing. That was hard, because in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, I know I should be doing something, but I can't do it that way anymore. Almost like I was feeling around in the dark and I didn't really know where I was going. I was just hoping I would bump into something eventually. It led to this kind of avoidance in me where I would feel that tension of, I should be doing something, but not like that. And instead of kind of addressing it, I would just mask it with stimulation, whatever that meant to me in the moment. Really just to kind of mask that internal friction that I was feeling. It took me a long time to realize what I was actually doing. I was almost using music to silently judge myself. When you have high internal standards, that becomes a deadly trap and a perfect combination for burnout. Now I kind of can see it retroactively, and I've put a few rules in place so that way I prevent burnout in the future. The most important one for me is to focus on inputs. Then the outputs become a byproduct of the inputs. Essentially, detaching my identity from the outputs and reattaching it to the inputs. When I say inputs, all that I mean, at least for me specifically, is I have a rule where I have a minimum creative session of 15 minutes a day. That's it. If I want to stop at 15 minutes and I have nothing, then I stop at 15 minutes and I have nothing. If I am flowing and I want to go for an hour and a half and create a full beat, then I will. That just kind of allows me to focus on the things that I can control because sometimes you can't really control where the beat goes or if it even turns out at all. What you can control is just starting. All you have to do is start, whether that's playing guitar for 10 minutes or hopping in FL Studio and just trying to get a basic piano pattern down. Literally anything counts as an input, at least for me. Probably the most difficult thing for me is that I'm starting to learn that I have to trust my own internal signal, not force creative output when I just don't have anything left in the tank. A previous version of me would feel a little bit of frustration and kind of agitation as to, this beat's not really turning out the way I want it to. And I would just force it. I would power through, I'd white knuckle it. And eventually I would get something. And it was always kind of this weird feeling of like, well, it's not really what I want it to be, but at least I finished it. And it led to burnout is what happened. Nowadays, I'm still learning. I'm not perfect, but I really try to listen to that internal signal. So if I feel a little frustration and a little agitation, I'll push it a little bit. But if it doesn't subside very quickly, then I'll reset. I'll get up, I'll go do something else, and I'll just reset my mind and my body. And if I feel like coming back to it, I will. If not, then I'll wait for the next creative block and then start from there. It seems kind of in the short term a little counterintuitive, like almost cutting yourself off early on purpose. But in the long run, it creates consistency and just almost totally prevents burnout because you're not forcing it. You're only given what you have. I realized that burnout isn't too much work. Burnout really is self judgment attached to your work. So, yeah, 300 beats taught me a lesson that, I probably couldn't have learned any other way. And so I'm excited to see what the next 300 beats will teach me, however long that may take. That's it. Just a thought that I wanted to share. So I will see you when I see you.